I've lost you all now.
Yeah. Great, thanks everyone.
And are we live yet?
Hello.
Hello, everyone. It's really good to be here again, and I've managed to hustle myself in on this particular one because when I heard that Sam Lee and Carolyn Hillyer and Nigel Shaw were going to be with us, I just wanted to catch up with old friends really and say hello. We have allowed a gap, a gulf, a canyon really, to develop between us and nature. And it has cost nature dearly and it's cost us dearly. And if we continue as we are, it will only get worse, I guess. But there are many of us who are trying to reach across this divide and return to the family of all things. And our guests tonight are three people who are doing that. So Sam Lee, in his wonderful work with nightingales and much else to do with nature and music and songwriting. And Carolyn Hillyer and Nigel Shaw, who also have been working really in finding a way of reaching across this great gap to the ancient world, ancient and future world of nature and ancestors, and have brought that with their writing, with their music. So earlier this week, we were sort of looking at how we can use words to connect with nature. And tonight we're exploring it through music. So I think, oh yes, I need to apologize as well for the fact that we hoped that Nick Mulvey was going to be with us this evening, but he can't make it. So that will be happening later in the summer. And I'm very happy now to hand over to you, Sam. I'm happy to hand over to Sam, but I can't hear anything from Sam. Is Sam still with us, or is he gone? Okay. Looks like we need a change of plan then. I can't hear you.
Oh,
sorry, Cindy.
Oh, hello, thank you. Sorry, I was muted and I don't have the controls to unmute myself, but can you hear me now?
Yes.
Ah, brilliant. Sorry for the wait there. And thank you, Mac, and sorry for keeping you in suspense. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for having me here. Thank you, Mac and Rachel and Embercombe. I'm broadcasting at the moment from my little log cabin in Sussex, where I'm at the Nightingale camp, and I'll say more about that in a moment. But I thought I'd start by opening with a song, as this is central to all of this, and I was going to share with you a song, a very short Sussex song, a real hymn for birds, which I've been very fond of singing this time of year, from the Copper family, who are not very far living from here. This is Birds in the Spring. As I walked out one morning in May to view the green fields and the meadows so gay. It is there I did hear those charming birds sing. Did you ever hear so sweet? Did you ever hear so sweet? Did you ever hear so sweet as the birds in the spring? As I sat myself down to view all around, and the song of the nightingale echoed all around. His notes were so charming, his voice so sincere. No music, no songster, no music, no songster, no music, no songster can with him compare. So all of you hear these small birds to hear, I'll have you pay attention. Now listen, draw near. That when you grow old, you'll have this to say, that we never heard so sweet, that we never heard so sweet, that we never heard so sweet as the birds in the spring. Thank you. A very simple but eloquent little rhyme focusing on the nightingale, but all the birds. And I was joined by the wren. I hope you could hear him joining in too. And a song that, although hundreds of years old, says of something that I think is feeling very pertinent right now with the plight of our birds and our songbirds, but all the birds in this country and globally, and the terrible decline, the rate of loss that we are seeing befall our native songsters. And those last lines that, you know, when we grow old, we'll have this to say, that we never heard so sweet. And this idea that, you know, it speaks for me about a word that was not in the language of the Copper family, but the shifting bass line, and this idea of the decline, the decay, the loss of bandwidth that the birds have in our lives. But actually how much that's shifted today, right now, and in light of COVID, how much birds are entering back both physically, but also reputationally and emotionally into our lives. And that, of course, is about the space that we're allowing them to become part. And the timing of this virus, it couldn't have been more fortuitous for the plight of bird lovers and appreciators, because we have suddenly quietened down at a time when the birds need to make the most amount of noise. And I capitalize upon that, you know, in a without sounding too extractive or exploitative, with one particular bird, and that's the nightingale, who is an extraordinary creature. And they are not the rarest bird in this country, and they are not the most at risk, though they are high up on the list. We'll probably see turtle doves go extinct before before nightingales, but a rate of decline of about 87% a year, and we're down to 5,500, which is a mere fraction of the hundreds of thousands we used to have 70, 100 years ago. We're expecting that this bird will have gone extinct from this country within 35 years, which is a terrifying statistic information to comprehend of a bird that has sat within our culture and has inspired us as a people, our artists, for so many hundreds and thousands of years. And I'm actually, the spot that I'm in is where I'm beginning the evenings. I'm doing these online at the moment, would usually be in this fireside with a group of people sitting on the logs here. And we would be gathered in a small intimate group. And right now, the beauty of technology is that I'm sharing these broadcasts with, hundreds of people around the world who'd never be able to hear a nightingale, never have thought to hear a nightingale. And I'm live streaming them. We go down to their habitat, which is just to the west over there, on an old railway line, disused, that has a growing population of 10 males now who've been singing extraordinarily. I mean, last night, under the full moon, there was a pond full of marsh frogs. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the cuckoo went berserk, and the tawny owls were going for it. And with the 6 males that were singing last night, it was a chorus that was deafening. I mean, the people would have called the council to have that sort of noise, disrupted and unplugged, were it human made. Yet an extraordinary sound that is so beyond the realm of so many people to hear, particularly now, obviously, with lockdown. But the power of that bird at the time of night that he chooses to sing, and it is the males that sing, as it's a courtship song, is what for me a sort of like I often liken it to like having the needle up the arm of nature connection. That with the work that I'm sure everybody here who's listening has partaken in some form of immersion, of the re-enchantment, finding ways that I speak of it in how we can deepen our love and our relationship, nurture our relationship, and grow and evolve it with us as we grow old. And the nightingales have become for me an annual pilgrimage that I feel such a privilege to share in that bathing of their sound. And every year, as more and more experiences in my life are revealed and the world changes so rapidly. This time last year, we were in Extinction Rebellion. And as the world seems to turn so much faster and changes happen at such a high rate, there the nightingale comes as a sort of anchor for me, both an anchor and also a pair of wings. They ground, and yet they also, they're able to release me into another place, a place of deep meditation, and a bird song that is so full of creativity and invention that I'm constantly learning it. For me, it's my one and only musical education of training, that I can understand the qualities of decoration, of silence, the mastering of silence, the shaping of it, and collaboration and improvisation. It's a bird that holds all those skills innately with such freedom, and also timidity and shyness and lack of ego and sexual lust, these things that are all there within my reasons for making music and for doing what I do. But then it's not the nightingale alone, it's the threads that they depend on that allow, a nightingale in a cage would probably be the most painful thing to listen to. But it's the nature of the landscape that I'm in. I'm in an extraordinary, essentially coppiced forest, but that's been traditionally coppiced for 50 years and is one of Sussex's most biodiverse private land. It's open to the public on a trust basis, and why I'm here living for the 6 weeks. But the nightingale for me is a journey into that space, and they reveal the delicacy of that environment, and they reveal the absolute kind of the power of what happens when you tend to land like that in such a sensitive way. It's a really, they're great revealers, but in their demands for a very specific type of ecology of blackthorn scrub, coppice about 5-6 years old, they're entwined with human endeavor. And that's the amazing thing. They wouldn't survive in overgrown deep forests. They need the wielding of the axe, of the billhook, of the saw, and the cutting and the regeneration that's afforded by humans, that creates a space for them. So in many ways, I'm aware of their dependence on us, and that symbiosis, that gift exchange that we all have whenever we are out in nature, what we give, that idea of not to touch and not to, we are, as you all know, we are part of this cycle and this system, and biodiversity is dependent upon us doing things in sensitive ways. And the nightingale for me is a great reward, and a sign that things are going well. There's that calming sense of the cycle, particularly as they arrive right at the beginning of spring. 7th of April they turned up this year, which was exceptionally early, and they are almost extensions of the bush themselves. When you imagine that when the leaves haven't arrived, that surge in sap rising up through the stems, through the blackthorn and the hawthorn and the dogwood and the willow that they live in, that before the leaves have appeared, there's these lightning bolts of sound, for they're so loud you can hear the nightingale well over a mile away on a clear, slightly crisp and moist night, and their sound seems to tap into that mains of energy that is the ground below them. And combined with that, there are glowworms here, and we have white throats, and the cuckoo might chirp up again. He's been immensely vocal this season. So there is this the biophony, as we call it, but and what I bring to the nightingales with the song, with the guest musicians, bringing that anthropophony, that human-made music, I feel creates something that is very important to honor, that this idea of staying silent is very justified, but actually music, and particularly music that's in service to nature, as we do, where we're responding as the musicians I invite every night to play in connection, in collaboration, in guidance from the maestro himself, the nightingale, that this is something that has happened for thousands of years, and there's evidence of that within Greek Epirean music and European music. Afghanistan is, the rhubarb players have been playing with nightingales for thousands of years. And so there's a great tradition of this rapport, which, although I have a few sort of locals sometimes scolding me for what I'm doing, saying it's disturbing, actually, the nightingale, there's a robustness to their song, which I find really incredible. And the population here has only been growing year on year. I feel I'm defending my actions, but this is an important question, is about asking us what our impact is on the landscape, and being able to feel into the messages that we're hearing. And what I'm hearing, I like to think, is that there's not only a positive response from the birds, but also that there's a great response from audiences, that we need birdsong in our lives, and whatever channels that we can receive that song, be that on the internet, be that being guided, that's a good thing. My dream, and I've just written a book about the nightingale, which sadly couldn't come out in April, has been delayed to next year, but I haven't said this out publicly yet, and you're the first, and I'll end here on this, but my dream is that the sort of work that I'm doing, and I know that Embercombe are doing, and you are all doing in your practice, be it that your sit spots, be that in your fire making, your weaving, whatever it is that you're doing, just your reading books, or feeding the birds, whatever it is that is your contribution and way of receiving. My dream with the nightingales is that that one day in the future, we would innately, as a community, when we can gather together, use the nightingales as a place to go and gather in groups, a little bit like the way the Scots do the Burn Supper, and we celebrate the nightingale, the great orator and inspirer, muse of so many poets and writers and songsters, and that we would gather in the way that I do, leading people to the nightingale, that people would do that of their own accord, and make that a place of ceremony and pilgrimage, because I feel very much the work that I do with the nightingales is a ritual. It's a ceremony that the effects are trance-inducing when they're with the volume of his song and going into correspondence together in that way. That this is something we all have the ability to do. It's such a simple act, and that the more that this can be taken on by our wider community as part of our springtime rituals, when maybe some of the May Day rituals that have been practiced historically don't serve the same purposes and feel uncertain, maybe sit uncertain for some people. Not for me. I love practicing a good May Day ritual, a padsto obios or something, but a nightingale is present and it's about survival. They are about survival. He's about the death and rebirth of the land and the fecundity of the land, and that needs to be celebrated. I'm gonna shush there before I go on too long. Thank you, and maybe if there's time for a question now or a bit later on, I'm not in charge.
Yep. Thank you, Sam. So please tap in a question if you have one, everyone. But while we have a bit of space, I think my vision would be, Sam, that one day we have you on here again, and you're saying that 35 years has been reversed, and that now we have nightingales and we will always have nightingales, and that this is happening with many other species would be the most wonderful indicator that we've returned to our senses and have taken sufficient action to see that possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
response to that, Mac, if I may, is that we have a great opportunity right now to divert our energies into the work that's needed to do, habitat restoration, deer management, big one, but also that it's about looking globally, because they're a migratory bird and their plight in sub-Saharan Africa is so important. And it means there's a wonderful opportunity for us to not just be doing things for ourselves in our own backyards, but for looking at the environments and the communities that are the caretakers of the nightingale during our winter time. And I think that's a really wonderful way that a global view and a local view can work in collaboration.
Yeah, wonderful, thank you. I haven't seen any questions arriving on my screen. I don't know if that's whether I'm tuned in properly. Anyway, so just to add, I haven't heard a cuckoo this year. And yeah, I haven't heard a cuckoo, and I only knew of one glowworm, one single glowworm at Embercombe that I used to see each year for about the first 6 years, and then this little light didn't go on again. So your words have also rather reminded me of that and the sadness of not hearing these sounds and sights. And anyway, that's how it is. No questions are coming through, and I'm not surprised, because it was absolutely beautiful what you shared, Sam, and I think sometimes it's just lovely sitting with it and feeling it. It's so special that we're actually seeing you as well, close by the place where you're listening to them, down by that railway track. So thank you very much indeed. Anything you'd like to add before we move on to Nigel and Carolyn?
No, I'd just like to say thank you so much for listening, and please tune in tonight from 10 o'clock. We have the South African cellist and a Xhosa singer, native singer, Abel Silikau, who is an extraordinary human being and musician. And although the Nightingales won't be able to hear him, his cello playing and singing in the click language is just spellbinding. So do join me from 10 o'clock tonight if you fancy. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers, Mac.
So from one world of mystery and wonder to another world of mystery and wonder and fellowship, Nigel and Carolyn, would you like to come in now?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mac, and everyone at Embercombe for asking us along. And thank you, Sam. That was just wonderful. I mean, it was so lovely to hear the bird song in the background as well. So people who don't know us, we are musicians, artists, writers, and we live on Dartmoor. So we're right up in the centre of Dartmoor. And what we're hearing a lot at the moment, of course, is the skylarks. And luckily, the skylarks are still calling up on Mercury Hill, which is just above our farm here. So we've been living on Dartmoor for nearly 30 years now, and this has been profoundly affecting all the music we do. And so when it comes to music and nature, there's this connection with the land around us, and it feels like we write in order to just honor the land most of the time. So we sort of thought we would do a little talk about the passions of each one of us. My passion is the flutes, made of many different materials, and Karen is going to talk about drums.
And we also would like to mention that we have travelled during these years in many places around the world with our music, and it has been really important to us to be able to carry our land, this landscape that we all are part of, with us. And so the way that we've done that is by carrying it with our instruments, carrying it with the flutes and drums and other things that we make. And it has been a really beautiful and immediate way of connecting with other landscapes, other cultures, other musicians from different tribal groups, all the different peoples we've worked with over the time. And inevitably, we've woven into our instrumentation and our dreaming of our songs and our pieces of music, all the landscapes through which we've travelled, and that has also fed into the instruments in some respects as well. So it feels that the way of creating instruments, which are the vessels for your song and your music, is such a deep prayer to be shared with other people in other landscapes, and that feels extremely potent at this time when we're all in such a space of isolation, and yet we can reach through so simply with our music and our prayer and our different ways of linking with each other.
So in the cultures that we have visited and in our own culture here, the sort of ancient and very early music was a conversation with nature. It was how we communicated, whether it was through hunting, through just listening. And I think that, modern instruments maybe, however beautiful they sound, have kind of moved away more from this base, as we all have, as we live in more modern society. But the ancient instruments that were made were often made from the very bones of the land, and therefore they have this sort of intrinsic connection with the land that they came from. If you listen to a piece of music from Japan, for example, you'll hear bamboo flutes, and this sound of these flutes is intrinsically locked with the land of Japan, and this is true as you travel around the world. So I thought I'm going to do a very quick journey through the history of instruments, and through the sort of instruments that, particularly with flutes, of what we've been using to create our instruments. I can hopefully hold these things up to the cameras a little bit more closely. So I'm afraid, Sam, this is a bird bone flute. This is made from eagle wing bone, and that we have evidence of instruments now going back over 40,000 years in Europe of flutes. This is incredibly old. They've been with us all this time. And the beauty of these sort of ancient instruments is that they have a very simple call, and the call is to the land and the call is to the animals. So I'm just going to play a little bit on this bird bone whistle. So this sound would have been heard in all our cultures across the globe as we first started working with music and calling back to the land and the animals on it. Another bone flute, this time made from red deer leg bone. Again, you know, something that is so much part of the land. And if you imagine hunting parties traveling across in ancient times, these would have been left after the meal. It would have been a very obvious step for this to have become a musical instrument. And within this, you start to get practices of ritual and honoring of the hunt or of the landscape that surrounds our ancient selves. And so, you know, these instruments start to become incredibly important and part of an incredible ritual that we have. And my particular passion is wooden flutes. I've used most of the woods that you can find indigenous on Dartmoor to make instruments from. Particularly these Native American style flutes. And the beautiful thing about using wood is that every single tree has a different story, has a different song and a different sort of element to it that you find when you start to create the flute. So, you know, if you work with a piece of yew wood, then you have a very different, very ancient instrument, or maybe birch from a much younger tree. And the stories that are released when you actually play these instruments are not just about the nature of the tree itself that it's come from, but about that individual, where it has grown, what it has experienced in its lifetime as a tree. So I'm going to play a little bit on this. This is walnut, but it's from the root of a walnut tree. So this is a sort of subterranean instrument that's come from under the ground. I hope you can hear that okay. You can hear. So when we as human beings are working with ancient instruments, because the complexity of the instrument is quite a simple thing, you can focus more on the contact you have with the surroundings. And these sort of ancient instruments are beautiful to play out on the land. I mean, I know we're sitting in our sitting room, but they sound best when they're played in nature. And so I actually haven't got a microphone outside at the moment for the skylarks, but I do have a recording of some skylarks, which I thought I'd like to play and play with an oak flute. A little bit of Dartmoor recorded. When I first started doing music, I used to travel out into the countryside and record natural sounds. So I'd spend a lot of time by the sea, by the coast, particularly on Dartmoor before I lived here, and take these sounds back to London where I lived at the time and play them, you know, while the car alarms and all of the racket used to go on around me. As a sort of, as a buffer, an insulator against, you know, the city sounds. And so I started to create music, just sitting, listening, and trying to complement the beautiful sound that was coming from the land. It always feels though that you can never really, well, you certainly can't improve. You can add to and accompany to the land and nature, but you are always, you know, coming up short in the long run as a human. There's always a striving for trying to create more beauty. And I believe that's true with the visual side too. You know, the color combinations of the land and nature far surpasses what we can do sometimes as humans. We can try and reproduce, but that's part of the journey. It's still trying to find a way of being able to honor and, you know, sort of try and echo that beauty back of the land. So that's what we'll continue to try and do. I'm going to pass over to Carolyn to talk about her drums.
Thank you. So I started making drums about 25 years ago, and it was a way of creating a root and an anchor for the songs that I was singing, but also a direct interface with the land. As time went by, it became important to me to not only play the drums with my songs, but to then make the drums and then later on to do everything, do every part of it, prepare the hides, prepare the skins, take responsibility for the whole process of creating a drum that was fed by the spirit of a creature on this land. So the drum journey has been a long unfolding process, and I want to share 4 drums with you. I'm going to start with the most distant from our landscape, actually. So I'm going to hold this one up. This is a reindeer skin drum. And that's the back of it. You can see with the reindeer antler. I don't know how much you can see that, but anyway. As we've traveled, especially in the northern part of this planet, we've been traveling in the tundra and on those northern edges for a long time and working there. And so it has felt really important to be able to create a drum that was born of that landscape in order to be able to sing the songs that I was dreaming from that landscape. Reindeer skin is extraordinarily thin. It's amazing, and it has a very delicate metallic sound because all the protection on the reindeer is in the coat and in the fat of the reindeer, that they wear these big layers over their backs and their haunches, but the skin itself is very thin. I should say, actually, for any of you who are feeling the sensitivity of instruments created from creatures, that all of the drums are always made as a byproduct of food. And you would never, no one I would know ever would take a creature, an animal spirit, to make a drum. The drum is the throwaway bit, the bit that is not being used in the feeding of the people. So that's how these skins came about. This skin was actually tanned by a Sami friend of mine in Arctic Sweden a long time ago. So this is from his tradition, the tanning of this skin. I'm going to play just a little of one of the Arctic songs that I created during those travels. Our drum is a vessel of the reindeer road. We circle the edges of our drum. We sway to the rhythm of the reindeer road as we cradle its mystery in our drum. On the road to the shrine, dear sisters, come away. Will you not walk with us on the cold Haraway? Reindeer road always with us, hear the old women say. Will you not walk with us on the cold Haraway? So coming into our own landscape, a project that I began about 7 years ago was to work with the wild pony herds on Dartmoor in order to create drums that would honour and bring attention to the situation of the Dartmoor ponies, which has been in quite some disarray for a long time. We're pony herders ourselves. We have a very small herd, and fortunately, we're never in a position where we need to remove any of those ponies from the moor. We have a different setup. We work with them in a very intimate way. However, that's not the case for the whole moor, and it was becoming quite precarious for the herds, and it felt one way of contributing to respect for the creatures was to make things of beauty and sacred honouring from what was otherwise being taken from the moor and thrown away. So I started making wild pony drums from Dartmoor. This is one of them here. These are very dark drums, dark brown drums. The wild horse skin is very thick and it has a different energy about it completely. And it really resonates with the energy of the animals on the moor, on the wild ponies, as they're living in their fullness and they're moving with speed through the wind and the weather and across the rivers. It really catches something of the energy of that, and it has felt so important to be able to catch their song and bring it into these drums. So they're much faster drums to play. I'm going to play you just a little bit, and at the end of this small chant, you will hear what we call an ancient Dartmoor wild horse herding chant. It's ancient in the sense that we remembered it. It isn't ancient in the sense that many other Dartmoor farmers use it, but we do. We call our ponies in, and we also take buckets of food. It's a very effective way of bringing the ponies down in the winter. So this is, it's from a song called White Horse Hill Woman, and you may have heard of her. She was a Bronze Age ancestor woman who revealed herself from the peat up on the top of Dartmoor here about 8 years ago. And it's been a phenomenal find. She's taught us so much, this woman from 4,000 years ago. And this is a song, part of a song in honor of her. This is just the end part of it. Wind in her mane, wind in her mane, this wild mare, wind in her mane. Hey, hey, yo, lo, hey, yo, le, hey, yo, hey, hey, yo, lo, hey, yo, le, yo, hey, hey, yo, lo. prayer. Hills are a prayer. This wild mare. Hills are a prayer. Hey, hey, oh, Lord. Hey, oh, lay, oh, 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 hey, oh, lay, oh. So when I first started going to the Arctic, I was there one winter and went to see my friend, this old tanner, in his place. And he was in the middle of tanning salmon skin, which are used very often by the Sami people for leather work, for decorative work, for making belts and bags, that kind of thing. And I said to him, I think this would make an amazing drum, this salmon skin. And he said, no, nobody makes drums out of salmon skin. So he basically threw down a challenge for me, and I came back and found a salmon that was big enough for me to yeah, Nigel's going to hold that close up. This little salmon skin drum. I've made 3 others since then. I don't make them very often. It requires quite a big prayer to make a salmon skin drum. But I love their subtlety. I love the way they reflect a different aspect of nature, a really quiet voice of nature. So this is how it sounds. You can maybe hear this. It's a good drum for playing beside a small stream or in a very quiet wood when you want to catch hold of those really subtle rhythms of nature, those really hidden secret murmurs of nature, and catch it in a small salmon drum. But the drums I make most frequently, and the drums that I teach drum making with, are made with these skins, this skin. And this is Dartmoor red deer. And I've been working very closely with a friend for 20 years to bring the prayer into the moment when the deer is taken from the land. And this friend does this in such a very honoring way. We are vegetarian ourselves. We don't eat these meats, but we do honor those who move with that journey with great care and respect. And again, this was a byproduct of these foods that he was creating just in a very small scale way in the forest. And I've been using the skins now for 20 years to make drums. And we have these. We have deer on our land, actually, red deer. There's a corner on our farm which is very forgotten over perhaps even 100 years. Nobody has really ventured into this little area. And the red deer use it as their birthing ground. It's happening now. They're bringing their young in and out of this place now. May, June, this is when they start to show their young. And it's really beautiful to feel that on this farm they're in a place of sanctuary, and that's very much how we work with it here, obviously. But in that space, I'm also able to play the drum, honouring all of that deer energy, that red deer energy. This one is used a lot in ceremony. It has a very deep resonance that can catch many different aspects of the land, and so I tend to use this particular drum in ceremony. I'm going to sing just a very small bit of chant, and then we're going to finish something together to complete our offering to you. But I just want to share this with you because this is a language that is also born from the land. I'm going to sing in Proto-Celtic, which is a 4,000-year-old Bronze Age mother tongue to the Celtic languages that are still living languages today. And it's been linguistically kind of recreated over about 100 years. Actually, people have been working with this language. I love it because it just speaks straight directly from the land. It hasn't got our minds intervening in the process. It's a language, a set of words that immediately connect into the memory of the landscape and the memory of our ancestor people. I'm just going to do a very small part of that. Noi bonani, noi bonani, askano kajo, askano kajo, biwo kajo, biwo kajo, noi bonani. Noi bonani, dijira kajo, kruatsa kajo, noi bonani, noi bonani. Noi bonani. And just to translate those words to finish my part of this offering, that means sacred grandmothers, sacred bones, our sacred breath of life, the sacred earth that we walk on, our sacred blood. That's what that chant is. And now we're going to finish with that.
So thank you so much. So we're gonna do another small offering, and then if there's any more time at the end, then we can finish up if there's any questions or anything. But just to let you know that we, you know, our work with the flutes and the drums and the songs and the music, you can visit us on our website at the moment, and we're doing some little online concerts and things from our land. We also would hope to get to Embercombe for a concert this spring, which obviously didn't happen, which we're so sad about, but we are rescheduling this concert. Obviously, nothing is certain at the moment when we may be able to do this, but we really hope to be able to come to Embercombe soon and to bring lots of music, because it's just the most beautiful place, and we can't wait to be able to come bring a bit of Dartmoor down to you at Embercombe. But you can check out all of the things we do and our instruments. We teach making these instruments as well.
So that's seventhwavemusic.co.uk if you want to check us out.
So hopefully, have we got time if we just do a little song to get just something with flute and drum together, and then maybe we could just, you know, if there's any questions or anybody wants to ask anything, we can do at the end there.
Okay, this is Heron Fly You Home. Buzzard, call you back to the wild land, heron, fly you home. Journey to the soul of your own land, where the mothers wait for your return, heron, fly you home. Buzzard, call you back to the wild land, heron, fly you home. Journey to the soul of your own land, where the mothers wait to the soul of your own land, where the mothers wait for your return. Heron, fly you home. Buzzard, call you back to the wild land. Heron, fly you home. Journey to the soul of your own land, where the mothers wait for your return. Heron, fly you home. Heron, fly you home. Thank you so much for allowing us to make this offering to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And just one last thing, Mac, we have cuckoos still here on Dartmoor. We've heard, so we are lucky. There's still some here. I can't hear you, Mac, sorry.
At the time, I think things that word.
I'm sorry, I can't hear anything you're saying, Mac. Can anybody else hear Mac? No.
We can't seem to hear you, Mac. No? Okay. Thank you so very much to Nigel and Carolyn and to Sam. I've been sharing some links to your projects, so I do hope you can all check it out and join Sam tonight at 10 o'clock for Singing with the Nightingales, and we hope to see you and Nigel and Carolyn here at Embercombe very soon. That was so beautiful. I loved all the drums and the wood from the different trees. It was just so magical to hear. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Are you back with us, Mac? Is there any final words you want to share? Or no? Oh dear. All right. Well, hopefully, there wasn't too much of a technical issue, and everyone heard these beautiful musical offerings. So yes, thank you from the Embercombe team, and we wish you a wonderful weekend. And yeah, enjoy the music of the outdoors that we're blessed to hear right now in all of this quiet and silence. So thank you all, and we hope to see you again soon. Cheerio, everyone.